Dad, shut everything down. Turn off the lights, disconnect the house network, and go to the basement. Do not tell Caleb. My eldest son, Evan, worked for the FBI. His voice came through my phone just after midnight. Caleb was my son-in-law. He was supposed to be asleep in the guest cottage 20 yards from my back door. I turned off the lamp, disconnected the house network, killed the porch light, and went downstairs. Through the basement window, I watched Caleb step into the workshop's motion light beside a gray-bearded stranger wearing my brown coat and retirement cap. The stranger was close to my height and age. His beard had been trimmed like mine. The cap was the one Margaret had given me when I sold the equipment dealership. Caleb handed him a folder. The man placed it on the hood of a car and began writing the same name again and again, Thomas Mercer. My name, watching another man practice my signature, made my blood run cold. The last light I had turned off was the one Margaret always left on for our children. She used to say a dark road was easier when somebody had marked the last turn for you. She had been dead 11 months. Caleb lifted a phone and made him turn his face toward the light. The man was not a perfect double. He did not need to be perfect for a camera the size of a thumbnail. "Evan," I whispered. "There's a man outside dressed like me." My son was silent for half a second, then his voice changed from frightened son to trained professional. "Do not approach them. If anyone comes toward the house, call 911. A deputy is already on the road." "How did you know?" "A fraud alert tied to someone already known to our task force hit the system. I recognized your farm address. My supervisor authorized me to make the safety call because I could verify you quickly." "Is Caleb under investigation?" "I cannot answer that. I reported the family connection. After this call, I am out of the case." That limit frightened me more than a promise that the FBI would handle everything. Even was my son. He could warn me. He could not turn his badge into a family weapon. Outside, Caleb collected the practice pages. The gray-bearded man removed my cap and climbed into a dark sedan. Caleb returned to the guest cottage carrying my coat under one arm. The sedan left before the deputy reached our road. No one had entered my house. No one had threatened me where an officer could hear it. A man resembling me had written my name on private property, but I could not yet say what document he intended to sign. The deputy took my statement and stayed until sunrise. At 6:30, I called my daughter. "Laura, I need you to meet me at your mother's estate attorney's office at 8. Come alone." "Is something wrong?" I looked through the dark kitchen toward the guest cottage. I found a question about her insurance file. That was not the whole truth. It was enough to move her away from Caleb without accusing her over a phone he might control. My name is Thomas Mercer. I was 72 years old, and I had spent 40 years selling and repairing farm equipment. After Margaret died, Caleb helped me modernize the shop network. I had left his administrator access active because I mistook useful help for permanent authority. I knew that 2 tractors could share a paint color, a model plate, and even a copied serial number tag. Only one carried the wear made by its real work. I needed to learn whether someone was borrowing my appearance or preparing to replace my authority. Before I left for the attorney's office, a commercial security alert showed that Caleb's administrator account had disabled the loading bay recorder and its shop floor display during the midnight outage. That was when I chose the evidence operation. The detached repair shop was still my commercial property. Its entrances carried recording notices, and every authorized user had acknowledged the common area security policy. Through my attorney, I directed the licensed security company to lawfully restore protected recording for that declared channel and preserve its original records. No new or hidden device was installed. The disabled shop floor display remained dark. Nothing in the loading bay told Caleb that the declared channel was recording again, and the service company confirmed he no longer had access to its protected records. The authority was narrow. The system covered the open loading floor, where customers, drivers, and mechanics had always worked. It did not cover the guest cottage, bedrooms, bathrooms, vehicles, private devices, or any intimate space. We would not stage a meeting or manufacture a conversation. If Caleb never returned to the shop, the system would prove nothing more. Laura arrived at the attorney's office with wet hair. She had been kneading bread when I called, so her wedding ring hung from a chain around her neck. "Where's Caleb?" I asked. He said he had a lender meeting. My attorney closed the conference room door. An independent case agent joined by secure telephone and explained only what I was entitled to know as a potential victim. A regional agricultural bank had received an application for a $1,900,000 loan secured by my debt-free farm and repair workshop. The package included a promissory note and mortgage security instrument that, if validly acknowledged and recorded, would place a lien on the property. Title counsel had paused the required identity and notarial review. The electronic identity packet contained a copy of my passport, my signature, a short voice sample, and a family affidavit saying I sometimes became confused and had authorized Caleb to assist with the closing. The affidavit carried Laura's signature. I did not ask her whether she had betrayed me. I turned the page toward her. "Did you sign this?" She read the first paragraph, then the second. "That isn't what Caleb gave me." "Did you sign the last page?" "Yes. He said it was an insurance continuity form. He said if you had another hospital stay, the carrier needed one family contact." Her voice weakened. "Dad, I didn't call you confused. I know what you are telling me. Now we preserve what proves it." That was my first choice, protect Laura before deciding whether I believed her. My attorney arranged separate counsel for her. She surrendered no phone, password, or statement to me. Her lawyer would decide what she should provide and to whom. I called the bank through its published fraud number and disputed every signature. The bank stopped the closing clock long enough for a formal identity review. The county recorder placed an alert on any document presented against the farm. My business bank removed Caleb's online access. Those steps blocked an easy transfer. They did not prove who had assembled the identity packet or whether Laura had understood her affidavit, even called me after his shift. "A different squad has the case," he said. "Do not send me documents or recordings. Use the agent and bank contacts your lawyer gives you. You sound like you're reading a rule." "I am." Then his voice softened. "Are you safe for tonight? Is Laura?" I watched my daughter through the attorney's glass wall. She sat with her own lawyer, staring at the signature she remembered making and the words she had never seen above it. "She is somewhere Caleb cannot reach without witnesses." I did not tell Evan that our porch light was still off. He had enough to carry as my son. I would not make him carry the investigation too. The bank's identity packet gave us our first incomplete answer. My passport image had come from a scan stored in the household insurance folder. Caleb had helped organize that folder after Margaret died. The voice sample came from a birthday video Laura had posted for me 2 years earlier. Neither item proved a crime by itself. Families share photographs. Children post voices. A son-in-law may help an older man manage records. Access was not consent. The questioned signature looked like mine until a document examiner placed it beside 6 authentic examples. Every genuine signature changed slightly. The questioned version repeated the same pressure mark and lifted pen stroke each time. It was an image pretending to be handwriting. The examiner could identify the common copied source. He could not identify the person who had placed it into the packet. The bank also found that the proposed loan proceeds were scheduled to enter an account belonging to Caleb's housing project. The project had missed 2 contractor payments and faced a default deadline the following week. 6 months earlier, Caleb had asked me to invest in that project and pledge the farm as security. I refused in writing. He told me he understood. Now I knew where the money would go. I still did not know what Caleb believed Laura had agreed to, or why he needed a man wearing my coat when he already possessed my documents. Caleb supplied the next piece himself. He called from the guest cottage before noon. "Thomas, Laura says you dragged her to a lawyer over an insurance form." "Laura has her own lawyer," I said. "Since when does a family need 4 lawyers to update a beneficiary?" "Since somebody applied for a loan against my farm." He breathed out slowly. "You approved that financing months ago." "We discussed putting the land to work. Then the bank will have a recording of me approving it. This is what I warned Laura about. You forget a conversation, panic at midnight, and make everyone prove they aren't stealing from you." He said it gently. That made it worse. Caleb was not merely denying a document. He was beginning to build a story in which my objection was evidence that I could not be trusted. "Bring my coat and retirement cap to the attorney's office," I said. The line went quiet. "Why would I have those?" "Then you won't have anything to return." I ended the call. An hour later, the bank notified my attorney that the applicants had requested an emergency review. They wanted the closing moved forward by 48 hours because Caleb's project faced irreparable commercial harm. The bank did not agree to fund. It did schedule a compliance conference for the following week so every claimed signer could appear, answer identity questions, and produce original authority. Caleb called Laura next. Her lawyer permitted her to answer on speaker after Caleb was told that counsel was present. Nothing about that call was secret. "Your father is having another episode," Caleb said. "The bank needs you to confirm the form before he ruins both families." "What form?" Laura asked. "The continuity affidavit you signed. You told me it was for insurance." "It is. Insurance, financing, continuity. It all protects the project if Thomas becomes unavailable." "Why does it say he authorized you to close a farm loan?" Caleb stopped using the patient voice. "Because your father agreed, and now your brother has filled his head with criminal nonsense. Evan has not spoken to me. Then Thomas did this himself." He sounded surprised. For the first time, I understood how completely he had mistaken my dependence for incapacity. Laura refused to reaffirm the document. Her lawyer preserved the call and instructed Caleb to communicate through counsel. That refusal changed his timetable. The next morning, the security company reported activity in the repair shop. My attorney received the original feed and preservation log. A separate working copy came to me. I did not watch it alone. Laura sat beside her lawyer. My attorney sat across from us. The licensed contractor explained that the recording came only from the posted loading bay system on my commercial property. No private room or device had been accessed. At first, the video showed Caleb carrying my coat through the loading door. The gray, bearded imposter followed him. He removed my cap and threw it onto a workbench. "The bank moved the conference," he said. "Why are we still doing this?" "Because once the identity review clears, the closing reopens." Caleb answered. The man tapped the folder against his leg. "The passport picture is 8 years old. I don't look enough like him in person. You look enough like him on video. They want another voice check." Caleb opened a laptop on the counter. "Use the birthday sample. You only need to repeat the authorization. And the note and mortgage package. Tomorrow you sign Thomas Mercer on the $1.9 million note and mortgage package." The man looked toward the dark security monitor. "What did his daughter sign?" Caleb gave a short laugh. "Laura thinks her affidavit is for insurance. It makes my authority look family approved. Once the wire clears, my project survives, and the farm can carry the default." "What happens when Thomas finds the mortgage?" "By then, every objection proves the incapacity statement." The imposter picked up my cap again. "And the FBI's son, he is halfway across the state, and he cannot touch a family case." Caleb was right about one thing. Evan could not touch it. He was wrong about what that protected. The recording continued for another 7 minutes. Caleb reviewed the false loan amount, the planned destination account, and the instruction that the imposter present himself as me. He never recited the whole scheme in one speech. The other man's fear made him answer one practical question at a time. When the video ended, Laura stared at the black screen. "Play the part about my affidavit again." My attorney replayed it. "Laura thinks her affidavit is for insurance." Laura closed her eyes. "He knew." "Yes," I said. "You knew I didn't understand it before I did. I believed you. This proves why I should have." She looked at me. "That isn't the same thing." She was right. Belief was something I could give as a father. Evidence was what allowed her to stand before strangers without begging them to accept it. The recording answered both questions. Caleb had hired the impersonator to complete the identity check and sign the note and mortgage package. Laura had been used, not recruited. It also opened a harder question. How could we stop the closing without letting Caleb replace the failed loan with a new claim that Laura and I had invented the recording to destroy him? My attorney delivered the original recording, security policy, access acknowledgements, contractor log, and my sworn statement to the independent case agent. Laura's lawyer provided her original email and the version of the affidavit Caleb had shown her. The version in her email contained an insurance heading and no farm loan language. The version in the bank packet carried the same signature page beneath 3 different paragraphs. That was the second evidence object. 1 workshop recording, 1 identity packet. The agent warned us what they did not yet prove. They showed Caleb's plan and Laura's deception. The bank still needed to document the applicant's live claim, preserve the original identity materials, and decide whether the transaction could proceed. Agents needed a magistrate, not my anger, before they could search a home, seize devices, or arrest anyone. I signed a sworn victim affidavit for the federal investigation anyway. My signature beneath that statement was the first one in the case Caleb had not chosen for me. It closed the private route. If Laura later asked me to forgive her husband, I could listen as her father. I could not withdraw truth that had become evidence. For the next 3 nights, the farmhouse porch remained dark. Laura stayed with a friend whose address Caleb did not know. Her lawyer arranged for a deputy to accompany her, while she collected clothes from the guest cottage. She took nothing belonging to Caleb and did not empty a joint account. Protection did not require punishment before proof. Caleb responded through an attorney. He claimed the workshop recording was unlawful, incomplete, and edited. He said the gray-bearded man was an identity consultant hired to help prepare an accessibility presentation for me. He did not explain why an accessibility consultant needed my coat, passport copy, voice sample, or a mortgage package bearing my name. The security company produced the original file, system log, and a mathematical fingerprint showing the working copy matched the preserved source. The entrance policy carried Caleb's acknowledgement from the year he began using the shop. His objection would be heard if charges were filed. It did not require the bank to pretend the recording did not exist. The bank kept the compliance conference on Friday morning. Its fraud officer explained the purpose in plain language. Caleb claimed I had approved the financing, and later forgotten. I claimed I had not. The bank would compare the live statements, original identification, signature sources, and the 2 versions of Laura's affidavit. It could reject the loan and preserve its own records. It could not convict Caleb or decide my daughter's marriage. The independent case agent told us warrants were under judicial review. He did not promise an arrest. "Your job is to answer truthfully," he said. "Not to make Mr. Shaw confess in the room." That suited me. We already had Caleb speaking when he believed the outage protected him. The night before the conference, Laura came to the farmhouse with her lawyer. We sat in the kitchen without turning on the porch light. "Did Mom ever distrust Caleb?" she asked. "Your mother distrusted any person who answered a question you had asked somebody else." Laura almost smiled. Margaret had noticed Caleb's habit before I did. When Laura asked me whether I wanted the dealership records digitized, Caleb answered that it had already been arranged. When I asked Laura whether she wanted to move into the guest cottage after Margaret became ill, Caleb answered that they would arrive Saturday. Each answer had seemed useful. Together, they formed a life in which Caleb stood between questions and the people entitled to answer them. "Why didn't you tell me?" Laura asked. "Because useful is easy to mistake for loving. I made the same mistake." She rubbed the pale band on her ring finger. "If he says he did it to save the project, I need you not to answer for me tomorrow. I won't, even if I hesitate." Especially then. That was her cost. She was not entering the bank as my rescued daughter. She was entering as a woman who would hear what her husband had done and decide what truth required of her. Caleb made one final attempt to decide it for her. At 9 that night, he sent Laura a video through her attorney. He stood inside the unfinished model home at his development. Bare wires hung from the ceiling. Rainwater darkened the drywall behind him. "There are 18 people expecting paychecks from this project," he said. "If the bank kills the loan, they lose their jobs, and their families lose what I promised them. Tell Thomas the truth about our agreement. We can correct the paperwork after the project survives." Laura watched the message twice. "There are employees," she said. "He isn't lying about that." "No," I said. "If the loan dies, innocent people get hurt." "That may also be true." She turned on me. "Then why are you so calm?" "Because 18 paychecks do not give me permission to answer the question you have to answer." She walked to the dark window. For years, Caleb had made every choice sound like a rescue. Approve the project or abandon young families. Sign the form or leave a sick father unprotected. Defend your husband or destroy your marriage. He built narrow doors, then blamed people for what they hit while passing through. "Would you let me come home if I stayed with him?" Laura asked. "Yes." She faced me. "Would you give me access to your records again?" "No." "Would you trust me? With my life before my money. With my money when your choices make that safe again." She nodded once. The distinction hurt both of us. It also left her free. Her lawyer forwarded Caleb's video to the case agent because it asked her to reaffirm disputed paperwork. The agent accepted it as potential pressure evidence but made no promise that it established another crime. The disputed farm loan had never funded. Existing payroll money already in the project account came from other sources and was not part of the attempted loan, so wages already earned remained available. His personal guarantee and failing project remained his responsibility. At 10:30, the bank called me with one last choice. I did not have to attend the compliance conference. My written identity dispute was enough to prevent funding under my name. If I stayed away, the loan would still fail. Attending meant sitting across from Caleb while he described me as confused. It meant Laura would hear the recording in the same room as her husband. It meant the agents might ask me to identify the coat, cap, voice, workshop, and signature under oath later. "Then why attend?" my attorney asked. I looked toward the switch beside the front door. Margaret's porch light had never forced a child to come home. It had only made the choice visible. "Because Laura should not have to carry his version into that room alone," I said. "And because my absence is the tool he planned to use." I did not attend to trap him into speaking. The conference was real, the application was real, and his authorization claim was already in writing. I attended to answer in the place where my name was being used. Friday morning, the agricultural bank placed us in a compliance room with a long oak table and no customer brochures. The bank fraud officer sat at one end. Title counsel sat beside her. Laura sat to my right with her lawyer. I carried no cap. Caleb arrived with his attorney and a locked document case. He looked at Laura's bare hand, then at me. "Where is Evan?" he asked. "With his own office," I said. "Away from this case." For a moment, Caleb seemed relieved. That relief told me how he understood power. He believed the danger was my son's badge. He had never considered my right to my own name. The gray-bearded imposter was not invited. The bank had cancelled every remote identity and notarial session after my dispute. Caleb had already submitted paper originals he claimed I had signed, and the compliance review would decide whether the closing could ever reopen. She began with the loan packet. Mr. Shaw, who requested $1,900,000 against the Mercer farm. Thomas did. Who assembled his identification? My project office helped him upload it. Who signed the note and mortgage security instrument? Caleb opened the document case and removed an original paper note and mortgage instrument. My name appeared on both. Thomas signed them in my presence, he said. Title counsel noted that the mortgage acknowledgement remained incomplete because the identity hold had stopped the notarial review. Caleb said I had agreed to complete it remotely after the bank cleared the file. The fraud officer turned to me. Mr. Mercer, I have never seen that original. I did not sign it. Caleb leaned forward. This is exactly why the family affidavit was necessary. Thomas agreed when he understood what the project could earn. Then he had an episode, and Evan frightened him. Laura looked at her husband. Did I knowingly sign an affidavit saying Dad was incapable? You knew he had become forgetful. That was not my question. Caleb faced the bank officer instead. Laura reviewed the complete form. She is changing her story because her father threatened to cut her off. Laura's lawyer placed both affidavit versions on the table. The insurance version from Laura's email, the capacity version from the bank packet, the last pages, shared the same image of Laura's signature. The paragraphs above it did not share the same file history, type spacing, or creation date. Caleb said his office had merely corrected formatting after Laura approved the language. The fraud officer asked him once more. Did Mr. Mercer authorize another person to sign or appear as him? There was no other person. The room became very still. That denial was the new fact the recording had been waiting for. I looked at Laura. She nodded. Then I asked the fraud officer for permission to use the room's screen. The bank had already received and authenticated the original file. Caleb's attorney objected, and the officer noted the objection without asking him to waive it. I pressed play. The loading bay appeared on the wall. Caleb watched himself carry my coat through the door. He watched the imposter remove my retirement cap and ask why they were still proceeding. His recorded voice answered, because once the identity review clears, the closing reopens. The man on the screen questioned the old passport photograph. Caleb said, "You look enough like him on video." Beside me, Laura stopped rubbing the pale band where her wedding ring used to sit. The recording reached the loan documents. Tomorrow you sign Thomas Mercer on the $1.9 million note and mortgage package. The bank fraud officer looked at the originals Caleb had just placed on her table. Then the imposter's recorded voice asked what Laura had signed. Laura thinks her affidavit is for insurance. It makes my authority look family approved. Laura did not cry. She unclasped the chain around her neck, removed her wedding ring, and placed it in front of her own lawyer. The recording continued. Once the wire clears, my project survives, and the farm can carry the default. On the screen, the imposter asked what would happen when I found the mortgage. Caleb answered, "By then." Every objection proves the incapacity statement. I stopped the recording only after the full preserved sequence had played. Caleb's attorney whispered to him. Caleb did not repeat that I had authorized the loan. He looked at Laura. I was trying to save everything we built. She answered for herself. You built it with my father's name and my silence. The fraud officer took control of the room. She stamped the application rejected for identity fraud, cancelled the pending wire instruction, directed title counsel to close the mortgage file without recording a lien, and ordered the original note, security instrument, and identity packet preserved under the bank's fraud protocol. She made clear that the bank was acting on its own records and verification duties, not as a favor to my family. Caleb's attorney lost head of the document without the originals and ended the meeting. Caleb left the bank beside him. No agent stepped from behind a curtain. No handcuffs turned Laura's marriage into an audience moment. The bank first completed its evidence inventory and formal referral. That afternoon, it transferred authenticated copies and the paper originals to the independent case agent under receipt. Laura gave a statement with her lawyer beside her. I gave mine in a different room. The agents did not ask us to coordinate memories, and our attorneys did not let us read each other's answers before signing. Using the bank handoff, my sworn victim affidavit, the preserved workshop recording, and the corroborated identity materials, the agents supplemented their warrant application. A federal magistrate approved search and arrest warrants later that day. Caleb was arrested at his development office before evening for alleged bank fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The impersonator was identified through the workshop images and Caleb's payment records, then arrested separately the next morning. Even was nowhere near either arrest. That absence mattered. My son had protected me when seconds mattered. He had not decided who was guilty, obtained the warrants, rejected the loan, or placed anyone in handcuffs. Caleb's own plan had done that work. The arrests did not make the next days simple. The bank kept the original note and mortgage instrument. The security company kept the preserved recording under formal evidence instructions. With my written consent, agents collected my coat and retirement cap from the workshop and logged them as evidence. I did not take either item home that day. They were evidence before they could become belongings again. Caleb was booked on allegations, not convicted by an arrest. The impersonator was booked separately. A prosecutor filed charges after a grand jury reviewed the attempted loan, counterfeit identification, forged signature images, altered affidavit, workshop recording, and destination account. The bank had stopped the wire, so it did not pretend to have lost $1,900,000. The attempted encumbrance against my farm was formally cancelled, and the county recorder rejected the questioned mortgage security instrument. Caleb's project did fail. Failure did not mean every worker went unpaid. The payroll money the bank had separated covered work already performed. A court-appointed manager sold equipment and completed an accounting. Contractors stood in line with other lawful creditors instead of having their claims erased for dramatic effect. The project could not be saved with money stolen from my future. 6 months later, Caleb pleaded guilty to federal bank fraud and identity theft offenses. The impersonator entered a separate plea for his role in presenting counterfeit identification and signing my name. Restitution covered investigation costs and the limited losses that had actually occurred. Sentencing came later, through the criminal court, not through anything I demanded. Laura filed for divorce 2 weeks after the arrest. I did not call that proof of loyalty. She could leave Caleb and still avoid the truth about why she had let him stand between us for years. She could also take responsibility without becoming permanently guilty for a document he had altered. We rebuilt in smaller actions. She returned every farm key, even the ones she was legally welcome to keep using. She removed herself from my insurance portals and business records. When I offered her a new emergency contact form, she read every line and had her lawyer review it before signing. That did not offend me. It was the most honest signature in the family. The commercial workshop stayed open under a long-time foreman. I hired a local bookkeeper and stopped treating family access as a substitute for ordinary controls. Laura visited, but she did not manage my accounts. She brought bread, asked questions directly, and waited for me to answer them. Evan came home the first weekend. His supervisor confirmed that his recusal no longer required him to avoid family contact about the event. He arrived in jeans, carrying grocery bags, with no government car and no case file. We sat at the kitchen table where Margaret used to sort coupons. "Tell me what happened before you called," I said. He explained only what had become part of the public court record. The bank's system had flagged repeated identity attempts connected to a subject already known to the task force. My farm address appeared. Evan recognized it, reported the conflict, and asked his supervisor how to protect a potential victim without contaminating the case. The supervisor authorized one safety call, while independent agents and a deputy responded. "I wanted to tell you Caleb was involved," Evan said. "You didn't know that yet." "I suspected. That isn't the same thing." He smiled without humor. "You sound like my supervisor. Your supervisor sounds useful." For months, strangers told the story as if my FBI son had seen everything, made one call, and dropped a net over a criminal. That version was easier. It was also wrong. Even saw an address and chose the rule that kept me safe without giving him control. Laura chose not to reaffirm a lie even when her marriage and 18 paychecks were placed on her shoulders. The bank chose its duty. A magistrate reviewed evidence. Agents who did not know our family executed the warrants. And I chose to stop confusing help with authority. The farmhouse network was rebuilt under accounts only I controlled. The guest cottage remained empty while Laura completed her divorce. Caleb's access to the farm, shop, records, and household systems ended through written orders and changed permissions, not a handshake. The porch light stayed off during those months. I told myself it was because I had not replaced the old fixture. The truth was that darkness had become the last instruction from the midnight call I still obeyed. One Sunday near the end of summer, Laura came for dinner. She brought a loaf of bread and set it beside Margaret's old cutting board. Evan called to say he was 20 minutes away. Dusk settled over the road. Laura stood beside the front door. "Can I turn it on?" she asked. She did not touch the switch before I answered. That small pause carried more repair than an apology could have. "Yes," I said. The porch light came on. Its reflection reached the basement window, the same low pane through which I had watched another man practice being me. A few minutes later, headlights appeared beyond the field. Evan's car made the last turn and followed the pool of light toward home. Laura opened the door before he knocked. It told my children that the road ended somewhere truth was allowed through the door.